Welcome, everybody. Excited to have you today for maximizing your non-rental revenue to maximize your vacation rental company. So this was a kind of webinar idea that Adam really has a lot to do with. So that's he's been on some of the past webinars, but I think he'll have a more central role today because this is his terminology. I've sort of swiped it from him and popped it in this slide deck for today. And I don't know if Annie even describes it this way, non-rental revenue, but it's something Adam's been beating the drum on for longer than a few months. I mean, probably a few years at this point. He's been talking about this concept, and maybe now it's starting to gain a little bit of traction. I hear clients talking about it. I hear people talking about it. So we're excited to dive in this one today. But really, it's talking about yes, there's driving bookings. Yes, there's getting more homeowners. These are all very valid topics. You should be focused on them. But what about the guest experience? And what about the revenue opportunities from that guest experience? How can we not just make it good? Or yes, we can make money doing this, but how can we make it something that people are really engaged with, something that people really enjoy, that sort of thing. So with that in mind, we kind of got three sort of panelists or folks today that are going to go through things. So for those of you that haven't been on one of our webinars before, welcome. Excited to have you here. My name is Conrad. I'm the founder of Build Up Bookings. We're a digital marketing agency specifically working with vacation rental managers on search, social, and email marketing. That is our focus. I wrote a book called Mastering Vacation Rental Marketing. If you stay to the end and you haven't picked up a copy yet, maybe I can figure out a way to send you a copy if that appeals to you in our bonus section. I've really spent the last 8, 9 years, really at this point, working with vacational managers. So this is, again, a topic that I think has come up more recently from where certainly when I started in the industry back in 2014, I wasn't hearing people talk about this. And I think this is a huge opportunity for growth. And over the past, few years, we've driven well over $50 million in direct bookings from our campaign. So I think there's a, what is it, farmers insurance ad where it's like we've seen a lot, so we can, talk a lot or we can give lots of examples. That's kind of how I feel. I'm not saying that, I deserve all the credit for that because our clients are really the ones doing the work, but we have seen a lot at this point. We've worked with a lot of clients. We've seen a lot of different setups and situations and stuff like that. So hopefully that can give us some different perspective that we can share today on the webinar. Annie, let's kick it your way.
Hi, everybody. I am Annie Sloan. I'm CEO and co-founder of the HostCo. And we're going to talk about upsells today, essentially, and non-rental revenue, which is what we do at the HostCo. Bit of background about me. I've been a short-term rental host since 2009, doing even arbitrage in San Francisco when I wanted to go off backpacking, etc. And I have short-term rentals generally in the Joshua Tree area of California. So I also feel your pain with dealing with all sides of this, including guest experience. It's funny, my background was just in regular tech. I was a creative director at Facebook prior to leaving there to work on the HostCo, but I just saw so many things in short-term rental that were like, wait a minute, how come this thing hasn't been changed? So I jumped over full-time to hospitality in 2021. So I'm pretty new to this side of the table.
Right on. Awesome. Adam, what's going on?
Well, it's great to be here. I appreciate it. So, looking forward to talking about non-rental revenue, as Annie mentioned, upsell, ancillary revenue. So, outside of the typical reservation fees and reservation revenue that you would get. So, you can think about this from the perspective of experiences or additions to that guest experience. So, we'll touch on that. But from my background, living on the Outer Banks, been in the industry since 2008. Started as director of marketing for a company out here that managed about 350 homes. Then made my way over to the vendor side, sales and marketing director for Point Central. I was at Breezeway. I was VP of sales at Inhabit across their vacation division. And recently I started helping a number of vendors that I believe in with growth. So sort of that intersection of sales and marketing. So you can see a quick list of some of the companies that I'm working with. Build Up is one of those ones. So I might have talked with you for some sales around marketing services with Conrad or any one of those other companies. But a lot of history in the industry. And as Annie, I also manage some properties out here at the Outer Banks. I don't even think about it. I didn't even put it on this list here, but my wife and I manage four properties out here as well. So I can also understand the pain from the management side. So hopefully we can talk about some things that not only make everybody's life a little bit easier and your guests' lives a little bit better, but also talking about the benefits that come with that, including some additional revenue.
Right on. Awesome. So I think we're going to break this apart into a few different sections. I think Adam and Annie are going to kind of take the initial little piece here and going through some of these pieces. And then I have something more kind of at the back end of the talk today about the marketing costs, like marketing acquisition costs. How do we take some of the fees and revenue that can generate from this business and then help that maybe with our marketing or help that with our awareness and brand advertising. So I may not have as much to say initially. Annie, I think Annie and Adam, you guys are kind of lead us off here. And then maybe I'll have a little bit more to say a little bit later on. So Annie, if you want to take it away, we'll go through your slides and get some discussion going.
Yeah. Well, Conrad, you said that really well of, hey, people weren't talking about this in 2014, really about upsells and why they are talking about upsells, ancillary revenue now is particularly this year. I think one, hotels are back post-COVID. I think we all loved 2021, early 2022 was the heyday, right? So ADR is softening a little bit in a lot of locations, and people are considering hotels. So right now, especially, 7 of 10 travelers will still choose a hotel over a short-term rental, citing lack of amenities as the number one reason. If that amenity is mid-stay cleaning, if it's food on site, if it's access to a concierge, all of those things. So when we're looking at the booking decisions of hotels versus short-term rental, staying in the game with those extra amenities. The second part of that is when there are, softer ADR, a full service hotel is going to make about 30% of their overall revenue from upsells, 30%. And that is a lot of straight profit as well. There's not a huge amount of cost in a lot of that stuff. Um, and when you're looking really to round out, you're like, oh my gosh, people aren't booking as often or the occupancy is lower. What can you do to make up that other portion of the money? So people are starting to look at other ways to do that. And it's also that it's 2024. It's gotten a lot easier. Technology has automated a lot of ways to do these things.
Yeah, right on.
I want to put maybe a couple pins in that there, Conrad. So if you can go back real quick, I want to just highlight two pieces there. So 7 out of 10 is interesting. I remember a Focusrite study from 2008 that was talking about the percentage of people that had stayed in vacation rentals. And I think it was around 7 or 8% of the population, the traveling population that had stayed in vacation rentals. So 7 to 10, right? That's 30% that are still going to vacation rentals. That's a large growth from 2008 to 2024. And we've all seen that. But the point I would make there is there's huge opportunity, right? There's still 70% left for us to go to. So as Annie rightly points out, ADRs are down, nights booked are down, but there's still a huge amount of opportunity that's on the table. And the other point I would make there is that 30% number is large. If we think about what's happening within our businesses, we're all struggling for revenue. And, I often mention that vacation rental managers really can't even open their doors with the commission that they get from homeowners. So this game really is about how do we add revenue on top of that commission? And for a long time, the discussions have been around fees and the right way to manage fees and add fees. And there's a lot to that. But this is a much better way holistically to think about adding revenue, because this is a benefit for everybody involved, from the guest to the homeowners down to the property manager. So I'll just leave it at that for now, but I think there's a huge amount of opportunity to capture new business, but then add revenue from the existing business or the business that you bring through the doors.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you made a small comment there at the end, Annie, but one that I'm going to come back to in a little bit, which is this idea of profit. Like, what is your margins on some of these things? And Adam touched on it too there, right? Which is like the homeowner wants the commission as low as possible. The homeowner expects the commission to be very low. The homeowner is often nowadays influenced by advertising and marketing out there from these companies. Like, we'll just say like Evolve is a good example, where they say, hey, we do vacation rental management for 10% of your gross income. Certainly Vacasa signed a lot of inventory in a lot of markets by offering very low commissions. Even local individual, small vacational brands in my market, there's a company here that offers 3% in the first year commissions. So they're generating all that stuff in the back end through fees. Some of those fees are very egregiously anti-homeowner, one might say. Once they get into that relationship, they realize what it is. But this is something in the forefront of the person's mind when they're making that decision on the property management layer of who to pick. Well, how much are you charging me for the service that you're providing? So again, we'll come back to this a little bit more, but I think, you guys are both right, which is like, if we can get more revenue, that's always a good thing. But if we can do things that are profitable, like that's always what we're after, I think, in this business, because the core, VRM service, day-to-day cleaning, maintenance, all this kind of stuff that's thankless, that's so important, doesn't generate the same profits maybe as it did before. So,
yeah. We've got a really great trick for owner retention that we're going to talk about later that is lines up with that really well. So upsells, why now? Of course, for operators, there's increased profitability. But that also aligns with if your guests are more engaged, if they're, oh, we did really something cool on site, or our host, which it's a property manager, but they think it's the same thing. They hooked us up with this really cool ... with this really cool chef. Your guests are going to be more engaged. They're also going to be more likely to rebook. Again, the external risk mitigation, which is just to say, you can make up low season with profitability for with upsells. You can make up for lower occupancy with upsells, and differentiation against competitors, and elevated marketing practices, which is a lot to say. the differentiation right now is if you can talk about amenities in your listing descriptions, you don't have to say that they're free. You say, we connect to local spa services, or we have on demand mobile tattoo artists for the week of Coachella, which is a real thing real thing. We have the most incredible vegan charcuterie board delivery, also a real thing that guests have bought, right? These are really strange examples, but by talking about these, you're giving a differentiator that other rentals cannot. Even if you all have great hospital, probably Outer Banks, probably Joshua Tree, you got beautiful places. They're in the place, they're all next to the park. What are those differentiators that you're offering and that you're talking about in your listing to really push that person into booking? Or that person does that thing and they tell a friend about it. And that is often the differentiator too. And then elevated marketing practices, it gives you something cool to talk about in your marketing, right? You can say all day, early birds this summer, 10% off. You are discounting your brand, you are discounting your product, versus this summer, we have on-demand Reiki healer available. We have on-demand movie night, outdoor movie night, where a vendor will come and they'll set up inflatable, cushions and an outdoor movie night projector. That becomes the reason for booking, especially if they've booked before, because you're giving them something new to do, something that could become a tradition every year. Like, every year we go to this one rental as a family and the hibachi night guy comes. That is their reason for booking, right? Above and beyond the hospitality and the design.
Yeah, so let me touch on that last marketing piece, because I think that we're gonna hit on the idea of revenue and to Conrad's point, profit a number of times. But let's really drive home some of these marketing pieces, because there's more to this than just the monetary value that ancillary revenue, non-rental revenue comes. And it's all of those marketing pieces. And as Conrad and I talk about, from an online marketing, direct booking marketing perspective, we really focus on three areas: search, social, and email. Well, upsells and events and experiences hit all of those, right? Because you're building content around these events. So there's your search side of things. From a social perspective, you're sharing these events and ideas through social. Even better, maybe your guests are sharing these through social because they're having such a great time, and then they're going out and making the posts, potentially, the viral posts that they can then share. To Annie's point, they're sharing this with other people in their family and friends to say, hey, look at this great rental. So that word of mouth comes with that as well. And then from an email marketing, same idea, right? Sharing that content back through email to remind them of when to come, or making your promotions that much more sticky. It's not just the 10% savings, but it's the 10% savings plus the experience, plus the event. The packages that you can start putting together will start to differentiate you from all of the competitors that they're looking at as well. And then the last note I would make is this is a homeowner attraction as well. And I'm a believer that really strong guest experience and guest marketing leads to really strong homeowner marketing. Well, this is a really prime example of that. If you're the only one in your market, or one of the few in your market that's talking about all of these extra things that your guests can do, that's going to elevate your marketing. And as a result, homeowners are going to take notice of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, a few things I would react to there quickly. Adam, the last one is such a I've said that so many times, and it's good to hear, you're not just saying that because you're on the team on a fractional basis here. I think you're saying it because you really mean it. But I think people think that they could just market their way to success with the owners. Hey, if I send enough postcards, if I, say that I'm a good manager, then people will believe it. The problem is that, like most homeowners, I always say this too, are usually pretty successful in their life and business, and they're not going to believe a claim that doesn't have the weight behind it that would make it seem like a believable claim. So if you say I'm awesome at hospitality, and then you don't really show me anything or say anything about why you're awesome at hospitality, maybe you have good reviews, but honestly, a lot of hosts have good reviews, right? That alone is not necessarily some massive differentiator. But if you say, yeah, I'm great at hospitality, here's the proof of it, like here's the opportunities, the experiences that we offer, here's the feedback that we get from social media. I guess I would think two things too if I was an owner. That's awesome. And gosh, I don't want to do that. So if you, property manager ABC are doing it on my behalf, awesome, because it's stuff that I don't have to do. And if you're hanging up all your operational, workload on that, fantastic. I think that's kind of one side of it. And I'll make one more comment, which is that I always make some version of this when a client is asking us, hey, we shot this video, I'm not sure if he can do anything with it. Or they'll say something to that effect of like, oh, I have this old report, I'm not sure if he can do anything with it. This is what I always say to the client. I've been doing this for about 10 years now, if you count my time kind of before vacation rentals. I can count on one hand the number of times I've gotten too much information from a client, or like there's too much content, or oh no, you're doing too
Yeah.
many things. Like, how can I possibly organize all this information? So the joke is like that never basically happens. So I'm always looking for more things on the marketing side to latch onto. I'm always looking for more things that I can grab onto and say, cool, that's something that I can put in the email newsletter to Adam's point and kind of what he went through there. So I think those things make a meaningful difference, and I think it makes the marketing easier because we actually have things to talk about. My last comment too is like a lot of people are doing that. Gosh, I went to a site the other day, Adam, where the pop-up said save 15% on your booking by booking direct, and I was like, wow, that is just like my take on this is that someone, if they're not a buyer at $200, they're probably not a buyer at 185 or
Yeah.
190. Like that's not the reason that they're going to choose or not choose you. That's not a big enough difference in the grand scheme of things for me to be like, okay, I'm choosing this property manager over another, unless you're offering something truly, differentiated or unique. Hopefully you have more pricing power. Hopefully you're not just having to discount everything to get it to move. Hopefully you can price yourself not just in line with the market, hopefully ahead of the market. I think the things we talk about today are great reasons why someone would pay a premium, from my perspective.
There's two email examples of this
Mhm.
that anybody's going to open. One is now available deluxe pet experience. So instead of charging even a pet fee, you can say, we now have, add on to your pet fee, and it's two bowls that say Sedona, Arizona, and a toy, right? That are in a closet. Everybody loves their pets. If you're pet friendly, everyone's going to open that email and they're going to remember your rental, even if they don't have anything to book 6 months from now. Oh, remember that place, that deluxe pet experience? That's a more normal one. We have a client in Texas with a tiny home park, and they do a Bigfoot experience. These are really weird ones. Most ones are really normal, but people, they said they had a family, and you can book out the whole thing. So you can book out like 10 cabins, right? They had a family come and they loved the Bigfoot. It was like someone on their team came out at a Bigfoot and like talked to the kids at the fireplace. No huge deal. That same family booked again 2 weeks later, the entire park, and had other like, oh, I'm bringing my sister. Oh, we should bring our other kid, right? What a great thing. And then you can market that too, right? Okay, moving on, because we obviously talk about that all day. Upsells, why now for guests? This is a huge one. So Gen Z and millennial, 77% choose travel experiences based on their passion points. So it is no longer based on the destination as much as the passion point around the destination, right? And millennials have kids now, right? They're the ones doing the booking as well. So that also means they're going because there's something cool in your town. They're going maybe because their favorite influencer lives there, right? Knowing those passion points around why they're coming to your destination is huge. And then talking about those in your listing or in your marketing. That doesn't mean that you can have Taylor Swift come to your house, but if there's the Eras tour is coming and it's a huge deal. Hey, at our destination, we have a shuttle available for you, or we have clear backpacks available. Something where you're just talking about it, because all of that information is also indexing, right, across where people are searching for things. So people are searching on TikTok, they're searching on the web. Chat GPT will now recommend things to you and places. So making sure that your destination is aligning with those passion points, and that's often through amenities. And again, the second part of that is Gen Z and millennials say traveling is core to how they express themselves. And basically what Adam is talking about is people want to take videos. That is really the bedrock of the big difference of how people are traveling. Is used to be a photo, right? We all had the Instagram wall in our properties because you got to have it. People are going to take it. Now they're taking video. What is the thing that they're taking video of? Right? And that is the thing that you can say, oh, well, if we had a yoga teacher come out to our destination, or we had a chef, or we even had just something cute for them to photograph that they could consume, that is, again, incredible for booking and rebooking. It is really a big deal for guests now of those passion points.
So I want to touch on a couple things there. So first, I'll make a quick point on Annie's note there around pets. What a fantastic idea. I mean, such a simple way to do an upsell that every pet owner would absolutely love. And I think that one of the nice pieces about HostCo is that they're starting to collect this insight. I don't think anyone else in the industry can have this type of insight because they're actively selling these to the consumers. They're selling these to the guests. So I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Annie, but I think that HostCo can help direct some of these best practices as we start to use this product to say, hey, these are the right services. This is the right time to serve these up. This is the right message to use. So fantastic. And I'd also note there, if you're considering if you're thinking about ADRs being down or bookings being down and you're not pet friendly, you should seriously consider being pet friendly. I think that's the easiest way to start to generate bookings. There's a tremendous amount of examples of that, but that's just a note from a way to start generating bookings. But for the guest side, I think that you nailed it, Annie. I think that we're getting to a place where the hospitality, the travel is evolving, and I think expectations are evolving. So if we think about the earlier stat of 7 out of 10 people are choosing hotels. Well, as we start to bring those people from hotels into vacation rentals, we're also bringing those hotel expectations with them. So the only way that we start to bring them over here, especially because they're telling us one of the reasons they're not coming is because of a lack of amenities, well, then we have to start bringing those amenities with them so that they can have those same expectations or those same experiences. And we've got to do it in a way that doesn't burden the manager. So we've got to have tools and technology in place that allows the guests to get what they want when they want it without overburdening us from a vacation rental manager perspective. I'd argue that that's one of the reasons this hasn't happened up until now, is because there hasn't been processes and technology in place that really makes it easy for managers to do this or for guests to do it on their side. But now that we're getting into that place, and I think it's called live travel is what it's being termed these days, the idea that people are traveling to see live events. It's always been happening, but now we're talking about it and expectations are being built around it. I think we've got to start to have the tools to offer these. The other note I would make is this isn't necessarily large things. I know that when we're talking about this, we're giving examples of sort of these grand experiences that you can have. I think the other way to think about this is to give people what they want when they want it. A late stay, extra towels, mid-stay clean, things that you're already doing can now be served up at the right time in a really easy way for guests to purchase and for you to then go out and execute. But we've got to have the pieces in place that can help do that. So I think the guest expectations are there. Now we need to rise up to meet those.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you don't want it to be the intention is less work for operators, not more, right? And how we achieve that is what we'll talk about. But just briefly, a lot of, upsells is such a vague term, right? So as there's ancillary services, if someone can please tell us a better term for this, that's great. Non-rental revenue. But upsells, I think it's a pretty big category. So obviously you have the curated local services in your area. You're probably already recommending the portrait photographer, the massage therapist, the chef, right? And that extends to other things that people are coming to your area specifically to do, if that's tour guide for the fish run, because everyone in your Alaska town is coming for that. It's one category. On-site purchasable upgrades, things like firewood that extends to mid-stay cleaning, extends to linen refresh, anything that essentially isn't on-site purchasable. I will say that a lot of kickback against the term upsells, or just upsells in general, is I don't want to sell something to guest, which you shouldn't be selling something to guests, and we'll talk about that. And I don't want to nickel and dime my guests. So upsells, main thing is don't nickel and dime your guests. Don't sell a coffee pod. Don't sell a toothbrush, right? On-site purchasable, if you're going to do it, and on our side, we see that as about 8% of all sales. So it's a very small percent of sales. You need to be a little bit more involved. And you should also just sell one or two. You should have one or two things, right? I think a lot of property managers are like, oh, we could have this mini bar and we can, all of these things, but it starts to look a little tacky, right? So again, upsells are always a value add. If it's midnight, we ran out of firewood. If we loved the welcome basket you gave us, do you have a second one? Oh yeah, you can buy a second one, right? So making sure you're positioning it that way. Another category, rentable products. So obviously bikes, if you have the right insurance, you can also give the bikes for free and rent something that they need for the bikes, like locks. And that's a better way to kind of get around having some sort of purchasable thing there. But rentables includes, we see people renting fancy telescopes for, movie night, for like stargazing, outdoor movie night setups, margarita machines, things that are too technical or too much for you to just leave out, right? And you can rent those for cheap. You can rent those for almost free, right? Obviously, there's alterations, pool heating, late checkout, extra guest. There's so much in the alteration space that the reason often that people haven't done it that we can see, and this includes me, is because it's been a pain, right? The person late books, They instant book, they forget their pet fee. You have 30 people that night. Who is that person again? You let these fees fall through the cracks rather than just saying, hey, here's a page to do it. And then upsells also include things like parking pass, pool pass, right? Gratuity, gift certificate stays. There's a whole category where you can capture specific fees. A very weird example of this that we've seen is return postage fee. If, as a property manager, you know you have someone who forgot their work laptop and needs it in 6 hours in Seattle, and you have to take half a day to go package it, send it. That's your time and money. Like you should be being compensated. And that guest is going to be like, oh, if you ask that fee or not, there's probably going to be the same level of happy. Right. So making sure that you are just also not only getting revenue for new things, but you're kind of fixing the leaky bucket around things that you're already doing for free.
Yeah. So I want to touch on maybe two things there. So one, we're local experts. That's the value of vacation rental managers. And the way for us to outperform the competition, but even broader, the OTAs and the big ones, is that we need to express our local knowledge, our local authority. And this is a great way to do it. This is both from an experience, a guest experience perspective, but also from a marketing perspective, because again, we can partner with the right people. We can talk about that through the content. But us partnering with the right businesses that we know are great because we're local and we know them. And in addition to that, to Annie's point around passion, we know the businesses that are bringing people in due to their passion and the ones that are executing on that passion really well. We can go out and start to promote those local businesses. They win because they're getting new businesses. We win because it's a great guest experience, but there's also a revenue and a profit side of that. So I think there's a huge opportunity to be that local expert with this. The other one I'll mention is the rentable products. And this is more from a best practices safety perspective. Rentable products is a huge opportunity. We know that guests want this, but it's not a great idea to keep these at your homes from a safety perspective. You're not going to be able to maintain them, especially at scale. You want to partner with that local company that can provide it, but it's really difficult to have that handoff. This is a really easy handoff where the guests can rent the things that they want. You don't need to worry about the safety. And again, you're working with that local provider, so everybody's winning.
Yeah, we have this is a really good example of this. We have someone that said, hey, we're on an island in Florida. You can't drive here. And I recommend the same golf cart guy every week. And it's like $1,500 for a, 6-seater golf cart for the 10 days or whatever it is. I recommend this dude every day. And people don't read the guidebook, right? So now I have something where I'm getting a portion of the proceeds from this. I went to this guy and said, I'm going to recommend everyone for you, but I want to get a portion of these proceeds. There's a few different ways you can do it, and it's automated. So not only is that guest not asking, because right after they book, you say, here's where you get your golf cart. It's automated for you to make money off of it. So once again, something you were already doing that is all of a sudden producing revenue, and the golf cart guy is happy because if you have a relationship with him, you're not going to the other cart guy, right?
Yeah. I think the guidebook thing is interesting. I just got back from a stay in Florida for the DARM conference, and we got a guidebook, and we're staying with a client. So of course, I want to hesitate to be, too critical when I'm looking at these sorts of things because we want to, be honest, but also see what's going on there. And I'll be my honest take on it is like had to make a very intentional effort to save that guidebook and put it in the right spot and then reference back to it or open it back to it when I was actually there at the stay. And there's something about, sending it, a month before when I actually booked. Okay, yeah, I opened it really quickly, but I'm thinking of like if that was sent to my wife, who's not really in the industry, she'd open that guidebook right away and then close it and then just be like, okay, like I'm not worried about this right now. So that I almost wonder, Annie, if this is partially like a right time thing as well,
Yes.
right? Where it's like in a perfect world, yes, you'd call a month ahead and book your golf cart and it'd be sitting there. But most of the time you get there and you go, oh shoot, I don't want to walk all the way to the beach or I don't want to walk all the way over here. What golf carts are available? And you think last minute and you book last minute. And barring, high season, you could probably get it. So
Yeah.
that's part of it too, right? Like when maybe it's just a question we need to talk about this. When do these links get sent typically, or do you have any data on like when's the right time? Is it like right at check-in? Is it the day before? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, sending a link to a HostCo store in our case, where you're seeing the different upsells, sending it right after booking. So, hey, thanks for booking. We're so excited to have you stay. If you'd like to add any upgrades or local amenities like massage, chef, and more, check out our store. Sending it then is successful, and I'll tell you why after I tell you the next time to do this.
Mhm.
1 week before the stay is the next time. You're 1 week out, get excited if you'd like to add any upgrades or local amenities, and having a description, even if it's firewood sales or it's Bigfoot, gets people interested in going to the store, right? 1 week before is really the sweet spot because a lot of things have a lead time.
Mhm.
And then also right after check-in, if there's things like late checkout or mid-state clean that you think about after you check in, sending it right after check-in is good too because they're not like frantically looking for the door code on the Wi-Fi. Then they've settled in a couple hours later. Oh, look what they have. I will tell you why those three times are really good. The first one being right after booking is because you've just booked and you're probably looking for the other things you need to do, perhaps like transportation or what you're going to do while you're there. Also, generally, let's say it's a couple who books, there is someone that likes to shop and there's someone that doesn't, or there's someone that really they get the enjoyment of the vacation out of the preparation, and the other person gets the enjoyment while they're there, right? That often is the dynamic, even in like roommates, right? So if you are giving someone an opportunity to shop, they're stoked. It's different than a guidebook. Like if you want to shop our listing and add anything, oh, shopping? It's so basic, you guys, but it's true, right? Just psychology. Then there's the person that 1 week out is getting excited because they're the person that gets excited while they're there, right? And then there's also oh, we're here and we saw something in the store previously. They know where to find it. So by socializing it right up front, you might not get anything sold, but that person remembers where it is. Like, oh yeah, they had that thing for me. Or if you're saying, hey, if you'd like to request an early check-in, go to our HostCo store, right? They're also going to see all the things around it. So it's the thing they need, but retail wise, oh, look, we could get a natural wine sommelier for our girls' weekend. Oh, look, we can get extra recycling pickup and we're having a bachelorette party. The things that what it used to be is here's 12 different links of where you can do things, and you're never going to look at those links, and there's nothing visual about them. So putting it all in one place, it works throughout the entire time. And again, it reduces guest questions substantially because put things in your store that guests are already asking you, right? It also shows them that, hey, yes, you can have an early check-in. I mean, obviously you don't know until the day before, but if it's possible, but there's a cost associated with it. And if that guest is not willing to pay that cost, could be 25 bucks, they're not going to ask you now. So you're eliminating all the people that are asking you just to ask, right?
Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned those different like travel modalities. I'm like, oh boy, that's my wife and I to a T, where she's like planning everything like far in advance. And I'm like, I'm a little bit more of like that week in advance type person, generally speaking. I think I like to understand internally that I have the intellect to understand what things can be done a week in advance or a few days in advance and what things can't. So we went to Rome for our 10-year wedding anniversary this year, Annie, for example, and like some things we booked far in advance, like certain
Yeah.
tours and like the Vatican tickets, you got to get those in advance and stuff like that. But like every given day, I was just like, I don't know, let's just go out there and see what it is, and that causes my wife a little bit of stress and anxiety. We can't do that, so she's got a little bit more of a planner in that respect. But yeah,
I mean, speaking of live event travel, you guys, I was just looking up the F1 schedule for Labor Day next year,
geez,
so that everyone's doing it differently.
yeah, right on. Awesome. Well, let's fold into the key benefits here then.
Yeah. So very quickly, obviously, key benefits of offering upsells. Number one is it's going to add up to 30% more revenue, which is a bonkers number, right? But we have property managers that we're paying out over $10,000 a month in upsells, and the property managers are keeping most of that revenue, which is incredible. We have people that we're paying out $3,000 a month. I got 25 doors, right? But they're just doing firewood sales and late checkout. So knowing that there is that revenue there and you can automate it is great. Improving guest experience. Again, your guests are going to talk about these things if they're interesting things, right? So they're going to win here as well. Once again, don't offer really cheap things. If you do, like instead of offering Advil, right? If you're in a party destination, have a hangover kit. Go on Etsy and have these cute ones with your property manager, logo on it and a few things in it that are cute. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to love that. They're going to be fine paying $25 for it, but they're also going to take a photo of it and be like, oh my God, how funny is they had this thing, right? Maybe it has a funny slogan on the top. Obviously gives you a competitive edge in marketing, booking, and rebooking. And a really big one is that decreasing guest questions by up to 70%. If someone is coming to your town and they're coming to town for a restaurant that's a bucket list restaurant, put it in your HostCo store. You can do a link to the open table reservation. And what you're doing is you're heading off that question before you get it.
I love that. Love that. Adam, anything to add in here, or should we fold into the next one?
No, we're ready to go. I think that covers what we're talking about. There's just a full circle of benefits when you start to think about this.
Mhm, mhm. So how do you position it then, Amy? So let's assume the listener at this point is like convinced they're all in. How do they
Yeah,
then, get to that next step of like, all
they're
right,
like,
I want their credit card.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I talked about this briefly. Positioning upsells as a value add. Hotels do this perfectly already. You walk in, oh, your room's not ready. Um, we'll check on that for you. Why don't you go have a drink at the bar? Oh, would you like
Mhm.
an upgrade? Oh, our spa has some booking availability. That all feels so personal and you feel so taken care of. Those are all upsells. So positioning upsells in your messaging and just don't overdo it, obviously. If you'd like to add any services, now we have available, dot, dot, dot. Those are all ways that you position it where it doesn't feel like a sale. Whatever you can give for free. This is not, nothing to, it's a cup of water is $1. It's, hey, make sure anything that you're giving for free, once again, that welcome basket. But you've got more of those if they need more. Oh, we love that. And we're really hungry and it's 1 a.m. Where we get another one, right? Again, if you offer low cost items, consider bundling them. That's a hangover kit. If that's not a toothbrush, that's a local cute products kit. Do that instead. Once again, people take a photo, they like it. If you need to sell a case of water, sell a case of water, right? But just don't nickel and dime people. Also, don't leave things out. If you are going to sell them, have them gated with information. So code to that room is 1, 2, 3, 4, or that product is on the top shelf, just out of the way. We've had people say, well, I left out granola bars, but their kids ate them. Well, of course their kids ate them. And obviously, you should be giving those for free if you're leaving out granola bars. That's not good hospitality, right? And then also ask your guests what services or amenities they'd like. This is something that even you don't necessarily have to ask, you just have to listen for. Often upsells are an exercise in awareness about your guest needs rather than selling something to them. So, what I always recommend is start with a couple of things. Start with like 6 things that you're going to upsell and just the basics, late checkout, if it's firewood, if it's deluxe pet experience instead of pet fee, and then start building on products by listening to what your guests want. We've certainly seen hosts be like, oh, well, we have some really creative ideas. We're going to do a bohemian picnic on the beach, but we need these 3 people to bring flowers, to bring picnic, to bring. That is like, you don't want to plan that. Like, first of all, just automate that off to a vendor off site, right? But also, um, really focus on what you know your guests already want and see how your guests get comfortable with it and how you kind of dip your toe in the water of understanding how communicating upsells works and then building on the creativity from there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I would mention a couple things around that. So one, I think that we shouldn't be afraid of the idea of selling, right? I think that
Yeah.
we're all selling in everything we do, but I think the end result is where Annie landed, is we need to be aware of what the guests are looking for. Guests are going to be happy to buy the things that they're looking for when they're looking for them. This, you shouldn't think about this as a negative to try to sell them something. We're trying to offer them something that they want. Now, with that said, we need to offer them the right things at the right time. I think that's the key to all of this. We're not trying to sell these small products that are going to give a really small lift to your revenue. Think bigger than that. Think big. Think about what they're trying to accomplish or what they're trying to experience while they're there, and then try to position that. And then I think the positioning, regardless of how you do it, is going to come off well because they're looking for it. So they're eager to get that message and purchase that product. The other thing I would mention is I think there, and I've talked with Annie a few different times about this. So she's given me some of these sort of secret ideas around these things, but there's other ways to think about this outside of that traditional sale to the guest who's in the middle of their stay. So there's the ability to offer somebody something if something goes wrong. So rather than them looking for money back, you've got a secret little store or a secret code that you can give them that gives them the ability to get something. So you're recovering a bad experience. I think that's a really cool one. Another one is secret stores. They've got to have some sort of code to get in there. So when you think about it from a marketing perspective, now you're creating some lack of abundance around something that you're trying to help them understand. Look, this is scarce. Act now, and you get access to the secret thing. And then lastly, I would say the idea of packaging. Running packages or running some sort of sale or promotion, including other things, is really challenging today. HostCo gives you the ability to do that really, really quickly and easy. So now almost every one of your promotions or times of the year where you're thinking about running something to get people's attention, you can start packaging together experiences and amenities with that. It makes it much more appealing.
Like that. Awesome. So Andy, I think you've got a little bit of information to share here about the HostCo, and then I got some other things to tie into here.
Yes, we'll make this quick. So, what
Yeah.
we do at the HostCo, as you have probably seen here, is we connect local amenities and services to your guest, and you make a profit from every sale. So, what that means is we help you in about 10 seconds create what we call a digital mini market for every one of your listings. It is a link, and that link is then included in your automated messaging, however you use it, in your thanks for booking message, 1 week out, and generally right after they check in. And that store, that digital storefront, can offer everything from all of the local vendors that we recommend. We've got about 7,000 vendors, and we have a concierge team that essentially matches your guest to that vendor when they request it. To things that you want to add on your side, all those alterations, late checkout, deluxe pet experience, through gift certificates, through gratuity, through everything that you want to provide, mid-stay cleaning, etc. And you get paid, you keep the money for the things that you're selling, and then we also give you 5 to 10% of the revenue from the local vendor sales that happen on the platform. And briefly on the back end, the really cool thing, and this is the special trick here, is that we can alert, on our side, we're alerting that vendor when a guest makes a request for a massage. Can you fulfill this thing at this time, on this day, at this location? On your side, we're pushing those requests to you, or you can just automatic like firewood. You don't need a request, but you can also push those requests to your cleaner, to your runner, to people on your team. And the really cool part for owner retention is that you can push the sales info to your owner. So your owner can get a text and every time someone, whoop, you just made a, like, congratulations, late checkout purchase of $50. Congratulations, someone just booked a massage. And they love it. Even if you're shit, you can be splitting the revenue with them. It's reinforcing all the time that you're going above and beyond, and you've automated this system where people are stoked, right? Same thing with cleaners. We can send your cleaner a text every time someone leaves a tip. Talk about employee loyalty. It's those things that aren't actually, you're not actually spending any money on them, but it's just a reminder of the better job you're doing for your team.
Yeah. Well, I like how diverse too this conversation has been, Annie, because it's not just, hey, let me hold something back and then sell it. The granola bar example is stuck in my head from earlier when you were going through that. It's like I just like that about hotels. I just like when you get in the room and like the water's not free. Like I guess I'm now like a click higher on the Hyatt a chain, point system. So now I get free water, but before that I didn't. And I'm like, dude, it's water. This is like a foundational, like,
Water.
human piece of existence. And if the bottle was $1, maybe it wouldn't bother me as much. But it's like a $7 bottle of water, that I know cost them 12 cents. And it's like, can I afford the $7? Yes. Does it honestly make me a little bit irate when I'm drinking a $7 bottle of water because I'm sitting in a hotel room for a conference? Yes, also makes me irate. So
Yes, me too. Or coffee. The lack of coffee in rooms now, I'm like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Okay, so briefly how it works, as I said, we instantly create a storefront for each property. It's also free, by the way, to use because we mark up the cost of things. Your store is pre-populated with local amenities that we've approved, and then enables you to add your own products. Again, the store is shared. It's a link. It can be embedded in your Airbnb messaging, in your direct booking. It can be texted. It can be WhatsApp, right? And you keep proceeds from the sales, and then we pay out every month. So pretty straightforward.
yeah, I don't. Any tips and tricks we want to hit on here, Annie, or have we covered a decent amount of these maybe over the
You
past
know
few
what?
minutes?
I'll go through them real fast. Communicate
Sure.
that you have a store in your automated messaging, and of course, be specific because nobody knows what amenities are. So if you say we've got amenities, nobody's gonna click it. Make sure you're adding external links. So the things that people are always asking you about, you might not make any money on them, but put them in your store, right? Mention specific items. Of course, tell people the things that are selling first, and really start with the easy wins, right? Number one, things that you know we're going to sell, but number two, you don't want to make your upsells look like the brochure rack at a Best Western. If you offer 60 upsells to your guests, they're going to buy nothing, right? So make sure you are articulating the best things you have and just showing those things.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think you've gone through some of these examples as well, but this is just a good reference slide. We can send this to folks after as well of like specific examples to go through as well. Yeah.
Yeah, wellness, and that extends to even like healthy catering. Wellness
Mm.
is mental, spiritual, and physical. So things to consider there. Special rentals. And then alterations, of course, and on-site items and experiences, firewood, phone chargers, case of water. But those certain alterations are going to be likely a top seller, early check-in, late checkout, pet fee. But you should be keeping all the revenue. And that's why you would also do this off of maybe the OTA.
Mhm. Right, exactly. Exactly. We got a QR code on the screen, and then I think at the end, Annie, we've got a little bonus maybe for folks in a few minutes. So we'll
Yeah.
come back to this, but I'll pause here just for a moment in case someone wanted to scan it very quickly. Or it's a pretty easy URL there, nice and short. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, awesome, Andy. So a few more things I wanted to tie in there. And honestly, that was awesome, Andy. I think you did a really good overview of like the why, like the how, which I think is important, and then obviously some of the tools and software that you can use with your platform to make it a reality. I want to start talking about CP. I mean, this is a term that in the marketing world you would have heard a lot, but maybe some folks listening are not in the marketing world. It's a component of their overall business, and they've never heard the term CPA, cost per acquisition. But I've thought about this a lot right now. Actually, the timing of this conversation is pretty interesting because we're sort of rounding out 2024. Obviously, we're looking into 2025 of what's upcoming. And every client who is very much in the numbers like I am and is running their 2024 reports basically indicated to me that like we paid more to get a booking this year than we did last year. So we can sit here and debate like RevPAR, how much your revenue was, what our occupancy was, all that kind of stuff. But the net effect is that at the end of the day, my margin got chewed into. I was previously paying $100 to get a booking, whether it's what I'm paying Airbnb or whether what I'm paying Google Ads. It doesn't matter. But clients that we have that are looking at their overall marketing spend over the entire calendar year and they're comparing that to where they were last year, this is not a really positive trend. Like this seems to be the case for most folks where they're paying a little bit more for advertising, they're getting a little bit less throughput in many cases, or maybe there's a little bit more competition on the platform sites like Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com being the big three, and maybe they're not seeing the same placement rate or booking rate that they were before. So we all know that there's a lot of, reasons why that is the case, but I'd be curious if there's anyone on the call who thinks that their cost per acquisition is going to go down in 2025 or if it's going to go up in 2025. So if you're sitting here, listening or attending or watching later, my take is that for most people, it's probably going to go up. You're probably going to be paying a little bit more for an acquisition in 25 than you were in 24. There's still going to be just as many players for the most part now that there was, as if we look at it over the last 12 months or so. I don't think there's going to be a drastic shift in that for all these sort of, negative articles you might read from time to time about, oh, Airbnb hosts are bankrupt, going bankrupt or going out of business. The data from folks like AirDNA does not indicate that. Like you would expect the new listing growth has slowed down, but as far as like listing just going off the platform and leaving, that doesn't appear to be happening quite yet. If you look in most markets, of course, there might be some examples in some markets where that is the case. So if your cost per acquisition is going to go up, in other words, it's going to take you more marketing dollars or it's going to take you more effort to get the same results, the way I thought about it is you've got to be efficient and you've got to fight back. And that's what I think Annie did a really good job of highlighting today, which is that you as the property manager or the host have to kind of fight back and you've got to figure out a way to get more results. So I thought of it in terms of these three levers basically that you can pull. You can acquire more guests or acquire more homeowners. Those are both very valid tactics that you should be focusing part of your effort and energy on. You can retain and rebook people who are staying with you better. So you can make sure that if they're staying, maybe you can have them add an extra night. Maybe you could have them, we talked about some of the upsell things here. Maybe those things make sense. Or you can rebook people who have maybe reached out but didn't end up breaking a reservation. Michelle Marquis actually had a really great session on Dharm about that, of like all the leads that come into your world that you don't fully close. What are you doing to make those folks close? And then, of course, how can I get someone to book again? With a lot of our clients in leisure markets, that's a very common technique is, hey, you just finished your July 2024 vacation. Do you want to go ahead and reserve your July 2025 vacation? Very valid tactic. But the real thing that you can do, in my mind, with the HostCo is expand. You can expand the actual revenue that you're getting for every single booking that's happening. So let's say in 2025, you didn't get any more bookings. No new bookings came in compared to last year. Let's say you got the same repeat booking rate that you got this year. The revenue was, let's say, relatively similar. You could still make a meaningful difference in the bottom line of your company by expanding, by getting more revenue per booking. And that may not be through rate. Back to what Annie's kind of highlighted very well here at the top of the webinar, 30% of these hotels are driving their revenue through this non-rental revenue line item. So I thought that was a lever that, again, you covered well today, Annie, but also something that most people that I talk with are not really thinking about this. They're looking at it as like, I got the booking, and it's almost like a check mark. Like, okay, job's done. Like I got the booking. Yes, I'm gonna have to service it in some, forward period of time, whether they booked a day in advance or a month in advance or whatever the case may be. But they almost just like stop at that moment and like don't worry about what's gonna happen after that. I think you've done a good job today of highlighting like, no, there's a lot of like dollars just sitting here on the table, and you can pick them up without a backbreaking amount of work if you put in the right tools and messaging and offers in place to kind of get to that right spot. So I mean, we worked with over 200 companies, and the one thread I think I can pull on that applies to pretty much every single one of them, urban markets, small, big, large, whatever the case may be, is they had a brand worth searching for. And I think that's one thing that you also highlighted well today, Annie, is that everything you're talking about is kind of like building the brand. I mean, a lot of people will say like, I'm never going to compete with Airbnb. This is like one of my least favorite tropes that I hear at industry conferences and stuff like that, is people saying something to the effect of like, Airbnb is this massive brand, they have billions of dollars, they're always going to outspend me. And my response to that is always the same, which is like, you're never going to outspend them, and that's okay. That's not the point. The point is not to outspend an OTA. The point is not to outmarket an OTA. You are solving a very different problem than the OTA. The OTA, let's say in Rome, where my wife and I were this year, or Myrtle Beach, or whatever the case may be, is trying to fill literally thousands and thousands and thousands of listings, right? Most property managers are trying to fill 10 or 20 or 30 or 100 or maybe 200, if they're a little bit larger. So the problem set that you have is not, can I outspend Airbnb or Booking.com or Vrbo? That's not the goal. The goal is, for the advertising and marketing that I'm doing, am I happy with the outcome of those things? In other words, are my ads profitable? If so, in my mind, it's a win. So whether you're spending $1,000 a month, $10,000, $100,000, it doesn't really matter if it's profitable and if it's meeting your business objectives. By the way, it's easier to be profitable, right? If you have additional revenue coming in the back end, which I think is what we've done a good job of highlighting today. And I think building that brand awareness is ultimately what creates the independence from the OTAs. The people that I've talked to who are like, very much like putting all their efforts in or eggs into the Airbnb basket, for example, just don't realize that they're fishing in a pond where they're fishing with everybody else. All the other lines are in the water with them. And if they just did a little bit of brand building, they would probably be a little bit more independent. I don't think many people are going to be able to be like some of the legacy brands in our space that are getting 85, 90% direct bookings. That's challenging to do, I would say, without almost artificially reducing or making sure that you don't get OTA bookings. In fact, I've always said this too. If I owned a vacation rental company, I would not optimize for 100% direct bookings. I actually think you're leaving money on the table by doing something like that. So I don't think that's a logical approach. But certainly doing nothing or not doing very much in that regard, and then sort of, whining and complaining about how rough and tumble Airbnb is with, guest complaints and things like that, is not the solution either. So I think the brand that people search for is the one that they book direct on, and then they don't consider other options. If they're booking directly with you, you're no longer competing with Airbnb. You're no longer competing with Vrbo for attention. Vrbo and Airbnb could spend $10 billion on advertising in 2025. But if the guest comes to you directly, awesome. You just bypassed it, and you no longer have to stress and worry about this kind of fictional boogie monster out there on the marketing world who's taking all the ad clicks and impressions away from every single other company, which is, of course, a little story I'm telling, because that's not true. There is plenty of clicks and attention that you could drive outside the OTA platforms. They're large, but they're not dominating over everything. There's some room there that I think people can grow off of. So in my mind, these things came to mind as ways that people tie into a brand worth searching for. They have a positive guest experience. I think we've covered that really well today, talking about when you're offering these upsells and you're offering these memorable things, that guest experience comes through. People are going to leave, I imagine, Annie, you can correct me if I'm wrong here too, better reviews when they go through one of these experiences, and it's awesome and it's fun and it's memorable. It sticks in their head versus like, yeah, I went there, I stayed, I checked in, I checked out, like no problems. Like that's a different sort of thing. It's going to show in the reviews, back to that comment from a second ago. So when people leave a 5-star review, they're all, like a good chunk of people who stay, whether it's OTA or direct, don't leave a review at all. So if you can get more enthusiasm out of a guest while they're in the property, they're more likely to leave a review. And therefore, you're going to be able to generate a little bit more brand awareness, a little bit more brand demand, because someone actually goes onto your Google My Business profile, or they go into, let's say it is an OTA, they go into Airbnb, they leave a review. We have clients where they only get a review from like 25, 35% of the guests that stay. So they have 100 guests, but they only got 25 reviews. And sometimes those reviews are good, mostly good, but it's still like, wow, there are 70 people who basically just didn't care. They didn't care enough to leave a review. They didn't care enough to leave any feedback. In my mind, that's a sign of like, you probably met their expectations, but you certainly didn't exceed their expectations, or they hopefully would be going out there into the world and letting people know about it. And then repeat and rebooking, right? So at the end of the day, if they have a positive experience, the best guest to acquire, the best way, if I go all the way back to kind of my starting point here of CPA, the best way to lower your CPA is to not pay anything, is to just have someone come back to your website directly. They go on your website, they put in dates, they put in what they're after, they book on your website. Then we then click on an ad. They didn't go through one of our email campaigns. Obviously, some of our clients are driving a good chunk of their bookings through that type of repeat rebooking that. And again, in effect, the cost per acquisition is basically zero, because you didn't have to do additional marketing, advertising, or effort to actually get that person come back in the door. Now, I will say, even clients that we work with that do an awesome job still have to do some level of repeat marketing and repeat booking. Otherwise, they sort of get forgotten over time. It's kind of like a muscle that you don't work out. Eventually, it kind of atrophies, and you can't always find every person that's happy with you is going to come back and stay again. But I do think that by making your properties more memorable, by driving more reviews, the rebooking repeat rate is going to go up, and that's going to make your overall marketing cost per acquisition go down, which is really what you want to do when you think about 2025. we love fees, and we've talked today a lot about non-rental revenue, but I do think that some clients we've worked with have taken the fee thing a little bit too far. So I do wonder if offering, this is more of a speculative comment I have here at the end here, but if you are driving more non-rental revenue and that non-rental revenue is very profitable, maybe there's ways where you can come back and figure out ways to lower or optimize your fees at booking. So the more and more fees you load, you put on, again, I have clients that I think have turned that dial pretty much as hard as they can. But let's be honest, if you go look at viral negative, comments about Airbnb,
Yeah.
what's the one thing that people always come back to? Fees. Guests don't love fees. Maybe they understand them or they tolerate them in the same way that we understand or tolerate a lot of things that we don't like, but it's not winning over hearts and minds, I think, of most of our guests when they go and see 12 different fees, on a Book Now page when they're going through a booking website. So if we can increase our non-rental revenue, I think it's maybe a point of discussion for some clients that we work with, or projects, that I've seen out there to lower your fees. Maybe you don't have to have a so-called admin fee. Maybe that could be lower. Maybe it needs to be eliminated. If you're making more over here, might balance out a little bit, and it can make your pricing more competitive where you are able to drive more bookings. So, caveat, you need to do your own testing and figure out what's right for you. I also talk to people, honestly, who don't do any fees or are doing no fee load at all. And it's like, okay, that's not optimal. Certainly having 10 fees and, is too far. So we got to find the right middle ground there. But I think it gives you the flexibility if you say, hey, I'm kind of shifting some of these dollars around. Can I get more over here? Maybe I could be a little bit more conservative or limiting over here. Marketing events, we kind of talked about that, so I don't want to hit on that one too much, but people are traveling because of events. Lowering your cost per acquisition could be better customizing the experience and the booking process to that event. So if I had a landing page that said, here's the event that I'm going to, the Taylor Swift concert in whatever city, and then properties that were pre-selected for those dates, that's going to make marketing that a lot easier than if you tie it in with the HostCo, where it's like, okay, this person is coming because of this Taylor Swift concert on these dates and times. You can really build the marketing all the way through the guest experience, I think, a lot more seamless. And I think most people are not doing that. It's basically just like bookings are coming in. We might ask them, we might not ask them what's going on. How can I make that a little bit better? And I put rebooking, repeat here on, again, intentionally, because I think ultimately that is what lowers your cost per acquisition over time, is getting more of those bookings and driving more things there. So I know, Andy, we're pretty much at time. We got a little bit of bonus. I didn't see any new questions come in, Adam. I wasn't sure if there was anything maybe that we didn't cover that we could do questions on. If not, maybe we can wrap here. Last year I wrote a book called Mastering Vacational Marketing. I would love to give you a free copy if you're new to the webinar series. I made this offer to some folks, and a lot of us have taken us up on that offer. Just send me an email, conrad@buildupbookings.com. Just put bonus in the subject line, like bonus or book or something like that. I could send you out a copy of the book. We talk about some of these topics, but we talk a lot more about search, social, email marketing, and things like that. And Annie, I think you want to round us out here with a special offer that you have for folks that have stayed to the end of the webinar as well.
Yes, for anyone out there. So the HostCo is free to use, but how we work is we make a 7% commission on sales. And with our pro model, upgrade to pro, we remove commission from you. So if you want to try it out for free with zero commission, so if you're selling that $100 portrait session or $100 late checkout, you're keeping $100 of it, and you access a bunch of other really cool stuff. Head on over to the HostCo, and you can go to the subscribe and use InfoPro75, and you will get a first month free. So, and hopefully you'll make tons and tons of sales commission free.
Love that. I love that. Awesome. Yeah, that's the subject line for the book bonus as well, if that appeals to you. Anything else, Adam, we should round folks out with before we let them go for today? But I think we did a good job. I ended pretty much right on time. So
I love it. I love it. I'll make one quick comment. I think that as an industry, we've commoditized vacation rentals and really focused on the home for a number of years. I think that as much as the boom was a benefit to the industry over the last few years, it was a disservice to marketing. And I think that now is the time for us to come back and fight against that commoditization. That's a hard word, but commoditizing. We're more than just homes. And I've said this in a few different places, but the home is the tool to get them on vacation. People aren't coming to your area specifically for the home. They're coming for a variety of other reasons. And I'd almost say that this isn't necessarily a branding exercise. I think that the idea that you're going to create this brand that's memorable for every one of your guests that comes through your door is a great idea, but I don't think that's the goal. I'd love for that to happen. But really what we're trying to do is create really great marketing that stays in front of them, that adds value, that gives them what they're looking for at the right time. And then we start to move away from the commodity of the home and we start to build the experience. And then people are booking with you because you're thinking about the things that they want, that they need at the right time, and you're building this experience for them. I believe that's how we win this marketing game. That's why vacation rentals are so special, is because they're unique. And you, as the property managers, are the ones that get to foster that relationship with the guest. You get to be the local experts that help show them all of the local flavor. Today, we're not doing that. Today, we're hoping that lower prices and a good picture of the property is what gets them there. There's so much more opportunity. And there's even bigger opportunity for the people who act quickly because other people aren't going to do it. The obstacle is the way is that saying that I like to use. And this isn't easy, but the people who do it quickly are the people who are going to win this race.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Well,
Yeah,
awesome,
very well
Adam.
said.
Annie, we thank you for your time and hopping on with us today. If people want to learn more, you've been very generous in giving that free month, and more people, I'm sure, can reach out, connect with you online, or go to the HostCo website and learn more from there. Any questions on our side, we'll send you an email follow-up if you were attending live or if you registered and didn't quite make it today. And we look forward to talking to you in the marketing side. So awesome combination. Thank you for your time, Annie. We appreciate it, and we'll catch everybody on a future webinar. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye,
Absolutely. Thank you,
everybody.
Annie. Appreciate it.